Let's bring in Charlie Hurt, co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend, and Benny Johnson, political commentator. Great to see you both. Thanks for being here. Charlie, this was a perfect occasion for a lot of things. First of all, it was for the Kennedy Center, and I'll talk about that in a second, but also just for the president and Melania. I mean, the first couple, I think you have to go back to JFK and Jackie to find a first couple that is, very frankly, as attractive and as cultured in many ways as they are. I mean, if you can find it, I mean, a lot of people were saying that when they took over the Kennedy Center and Rick Grinnell came in as the new president, they were pearl clutching and saying, you know, oh, they're going to ruin it. Well, in fact, it's getting back to basics: basic opera, basic orchestrations, basic music, old Broadway musicals. I think the good stuff, don't you?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. You know, Andrew Breitbart famously said that politics is downstream from culture, and that's why Democrats put so much effort into controlling culture and then, of course, benefited from culture. And I think that explains why they so despise Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is culture. He's not just upstream from politics. He is the embodiment of culture, and he's been such a huge part of, you know, he used to talk about how many rap songs he was in, how many movies he had been in. You know, we kind of laugh about it, but that's a really big deal when it comes to the most important thing in politics, which is who knows your name and what do they think of you?
And Benny, the point is that the DEI culture that had taken over so much of what passes for culture these days, the Opera House in New York, which is going full DEI and making furious some of these $1 million donors who like the old stuff, like the original way those operas were written. All of the wild atonal music that you hear at concert halls all over the United States. It's crap. I mean, this stuff is just crap. There's a case to be made that the real wonderful harmonies of the old days are actually better, isn't it?
Well, yes, absolutely. And that Opera House, very interestingly enough, was featured in Home Alone 2, the very same documentary that took place at the Plaza Hotel that Donald Trump saved, one of the most beautiful hotels in the world, wouldn't be here with not for Donald Trump. And a reminder that in that important American documentary, President Trump saved Christmas by showing Kevin where the front desk was, down the hall and to the left. And so, yes, all of those things, the pigeon lady and Kevin were there in the opera hall. This is President Trump saving Christmas. One of the first conversations I ever had with President Trump was about how he didn't have any real ground game in Iowa. And he said, I don't need a ground name. I don't need door knockers. I saved Christmas. Remember Christmas? Remember Home Alone 2? Trump is culture. He was in The Little Rascals. Whoopi Goldberg was praising him. And today, President Trump was live on stage with the Village People singing YMCA and dancing. I have no idea if your producers have the footage, but it is gold, David. Gold, David.
Yeah. But one thing that JFK had, Charlie, that Trump does not have is the press.
Totally.
The press love JFK. They hate, I'm talking about the mainstream press now, they hate Donald Trump and everything he represents. But the American people, I'm just wondering if they're fed up with that, because they, you know, again, this atonal stuff that you hear in orchestrations all over the country and the kind of plays you see, the kind of operas, everything is getting sort of rejected now. And it gets back to faith, because interestingly, while there has been a drop-off in religious, the young people who are coming into the religious arena, primarily in Catholicism, but other religions, are more conservative. They yearn for a more conservative way, not the relativistic BS that's thrown around so easily.
You know, human nature and beauty is timeless. And, you know, there's a reason that these services inspire people, because they've inspired humans for all of time. It's a real beauty, because beauty is timeless. And when politicians, especially politicians, try to take all this DEI crap and jam it down this thing that's not timeless, this thing that is just sort of the moment, the latest stupid, idiotic fad, and you try to cram, culture and beauty into this thing, it doesn't work.
Right.
And maybe we can people can pretend for a couple of years that, oh, isn't this beautiful? But actually, they're all lying, and they all know it's a lie.
Look, you go to Notre Dame, Benny. You go to all of these great cathedrals around the world, and you can't say. I mean, by the way, not everything modern is bad. There is the La Familia Cathedral in Barcelona, done by Gaudi, I think was the name of the architect, who's this wonderful. He was a modern architect in the early 1900s, and it's a spectacular cathedral. So you can be modern. I'm not against modernism, but again, the kind of stuff that it looks like it was just thrown. That's why the Taliban were taking down so many of the monuments, blowing them up, because they couldn't stand culture either. They're kind of united. This is our DEI folks are the Taliban of the United States.
David, I have an uplifting Christmas miracle to report for you, which is that we are right now living through something that has never happened before in human history, which is that the younger generation, Millennial, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha, are more religious than their parents' generation, are returning to church in greater numbers than their parents. We're putting the Christ back in Christmas, and young people are doing it. And that is something to really be uplifted around this holiday season and this Christmas season, for it is a search for young people to find truth and meaning in a world that doesn't have any and isn't offering that to them. And when all of the institutions around us are corrupted and are crumbling, it is a return to Christ and Christendom that will save young people, and it's happening right now, a Christmas miracle.
Well, I'm going to move off of the sublime topic of faith, going from the sublime to the ridiculous, and get into a little politics, because we did have this Supreme Court decision on the Texas redistricting, Charlie, which seems to favor Republicans. Is that going to help them in the midterms?
Oh, I think without a doubt. And, just from a personal standpoint, one of the things I love about all of this, and I realize that we don't exactly know how it's all going to play out politically, but that the notion that you can have anyone other than elected politicians determining these districts has always been a lie, and it was never going to work. There's no such thing as an unbiased panel of experts who are going to do this without the influence of politics. And I say, let it all be raw politics. I'm fine with that.
And Benny, speaking of the issues that we're going to be dealing with in the midterms, affordability, of course, is one of the biggest. And we were just talking with John Carney about housing being probably the biggest issue on affordability. And it is true. We've gone from, in 2019, paying $1,200 a month for a house. Today, you have to pay $2,700 monthly charges for a house. It's more than double in just 6 years. You are heading up a group looking into the affordability of housing for the American First Policy Institute. What are the answers there?
Yeah, well, you have to start with the problem. And the problem is that the average first-time home buyer's age is 40 years old. The reason that you buy a home is to get married, start a family, to seize your American dream, and you can't do that at 40. That's outside of the window of optimum fertility. That's outside of the window where young men want to get families started, and so you're killing the American dream literally in the cradle. And so you have to get young people into homes. It's become wildly out of reach for young people because of interest rates, because of criminal aliens that are occupying homes that ought right to go to Americans, and frankly, because of big banks that are there buying homes at scale and in mass, private equity,
and also,
that are scooping up American households.
Also because of the pandemic, there were certain issues there with supply chains that made lumber very expensive and everything, and labor. Benny, you're going to stay with me